Free speech, and I have to say the attack on free speech in Australia has been frightening. I've felt it close up, but it's getting much, much worse now. The latest victim of it is Liberal Senator Claire Chandler. A couple of months ago, she wrote a defence of free speech in the Hobart Mercury, defending J.K. Rowling, and in passing said, women's sport, women's toilets and women's changing rooms are designed for the female sex and should remain that way. Her opinion, transgender politics, and why not? And to someone who complained, she sent an email defending that opinion. But Australia has crazy, dangerously broad laws against free speech. Tasmania is some of the worst. And Tasmania's Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, Sarah Bolt, I hasten to say, no relation, said this was enough to drag in Senator Chandler for mandatory conciliation. She said the senator's views were problematic. There's always a telling word, problematic, and arguably objectively offensive on the basis of gender identity and intersex variations of sex characteristics. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, it's gone a bit nuclear. Joining me is Senator Claire Chandler. Senator, thank you so much for your time. The Anti-Discrimination Commission has now sent you what I interpret as a threat. What did it say?
Well, Andrew, last week I received an email from the Anti-Discrimination Commission in which they drew my attention to a section of the Anti-Discrimination Act that specifies that it is unlawful to offend someone undertaking the work of the Commission during an investigation. And attached to this email were examples of correspondence that the Commission had received from people right across Australia who are rightly concerned at the process that I'm being subjected to and the broader impact that this process has on free speech. So what we have is a situation where not only can this commission drag me to a conciliation on the basis that I might have offended someone, they're now also saying that nobody else is allowed to criticise their own processes.
But why send the letter to you? I mean, you didn't write those letters. I mean, that's extraordinary.
It was very puzzling, I must say, Andrew, and I have not been encouraging anybody to contact the Commissioner. They've been doing that off their own bat. But what I really am worried about here is the precedent that this sets for every Australian to think that they're not only able to speak their mind, but also not able to criticise in a dignified and respectful way any process that might be undertaken by the bureaucracy. I mean, isn't that a fundamental tenet of our democracy, that we can openly discuss government and the way that it operates, and these tribunals are part of that?
Well, I just don't get it. I thought, look, you might know more about this than I thought judges and magistrates and physicians, people like that, were beyond anyone, being able to intimidate them or scare them or influence them and all that. How could a letter to a commissioner make them, interfere with their work? How could it do that?
Look, I didn't draft that provision of Tasmania's Anti-Discrimination Act, Andrew, so I probably am not in a position to answer why you would put it in the Act to start with. But like I say, it is a worrying infringement on the free speech of people that agree with what the views that I put forward and would just like to see this complaint rejected, as I do.
The whole thing just staggers me. Senator, what does your experience now tell you about the state of free speech in Tasmania or Australia more generally?
Oh, look, Andrew, I've been concerned about the state of free speech in this country for quite some time. Long before I was a senator, I spoke about it in my maiden speech to the Parliament. And you only have to look at the countless examples of people, myself, Archbishop Julian Porteous in Tasmania is another one who has gone through a very similar process to me on the back of the same piece of legislation. I mean, everyday Australians must be looking at the people being dragged through these processes and wondering whether or not they are able to freely speak their mind on the issues that are dear to them. It absolutely undermines our democracy if people feel that they're not able to put their views forward. And what is really troubling to me is up until I received this complaint, I had countless Australian people contact me, Australian women often, saying that they agreed with my views about sex-based women's rights, but feeling that they weren't able to put those views forward for fear of legal retribution. And now I have found myself in exactly the same situation that all of these Australians were fearsome of.
The whole thing is farcical. If you don't like someone's views on transgender politics or anything, just argue it out. I mean, you don't sue the free speech police. Golly gosh. Senator Claire Chandler, thank you so much indeed for your time and good luck. I mean, I think you've broken her interpretation of the law again, but what the heck? We've got to speak up when we can, while we still may.
Absolutely, Andrew. I won't be backing down, I assure you.
Good on you. Thank you so much indeed.
Thanks very much, Andrew.